Welcome to Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's podcast, Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women. This is the place for you, typically professionals in your fields, chiropractors, dentists, engineers, pilots, accountants, list goes on, teachers. And we do invest honorably and ethically in the areas where we do invest in. Win-win for everybody, of course, us, and we want a profit. But the thing is, we've learned when everybody wins, the neighborhood, the tenants, you have a much better, more profitable business. So it's not the no money down owner financing stuff, although we do teach that, but it has its place. It's just not every place. For example, if you own a practice, which many of you do, you can actually leverage your practice to buy passive income properties and vice versa too. I know dentists that have, 5, 6, 7 practices in multiple buildings, and they keep growing exponentially because they keep leveraging the two with each other. So in any case, welcome aboard. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please go ahead and do so. It's on, of course, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, probably several dozen different channels, and probably close to 30 countries now. So in any case, and if you want to be part of the community, go to myinvestmentservices.com and click on members area. And if you're already a member, you go into silver level there. That's how you get to the community site. It's where we all hang out. We do joint ventures together. We also have on there well over 3,000 real estate agents that we've trained to work with us investors, which is critical. Whenever you work with an agent, make sure they can prove to you they're a certified investor agent. We give them that certification when they go through the training. So in any case, without further ado, I want to welcome a guest. Brian Devine and I met each other several years ago in a mastermind group, stayed in contact, and he's a great guy, and his specialty is marketing for dentists. It's very applicable to anybody really that owns a business, particularly practitioners. But hey, Brian, welcome aboard, man. I appreciate you taking your time to do this. I know you're a busy guy. So
absolutely, Gary. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. Hey, if you wouldn't mind, just give everybody some context, kind of paint a picture for us. Like who's Brian Devine, and where are you? What have you been doing? How'd you get there? And then we'll get into some content and some case studies for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I started a company called Top Line Management. Believe it or not, 12 years ago. It's kind of shocking when I realized it's been that long. And it kind of came about because I had been working with dentists and orthodontists for years, and I have a degree in marketing and computer science. So they would find out that I had this background, and they'd say, oh, well, hey, let's take a look at some of my marketing materials. And I would, oh, great, I'd love to. I'd get into that. And they would show me like a mailer, and I'd say, okay, great, where is your phone number? And they'd turn it over, and they'd point to something little in the back corner, and then they'd show me their phone number. I'm like, well, let's maybe make that bigger, because do we want people to call you? Yeah, okay, great. Let's make that phone number bigger. And I'd say, okay, now what do you want people to do when they see your material? They get this in the mail. What do you want to do? Well, I want them to call. Well, you might want to mention that. Mm-hmm. And I was shocked as I would go through just basic marketing 101, and it wasn't in there. And they're spending $5,000 to $10,000 on probably a single mailer. And then they were like, well, we were told we're going to get like a 5% return. I'm like, well, not on the first one. Mm-hmm. And even if you get like a 0.5% on the first one, the only way you're going to get that is if you have a call to action, which you don't. You have to have your phone number really clear, and you have to have like an offer. And there's none of those things here. So I'm like, please don't run it. And after doing that long enough, I had enough people go, well, can you just consult? Can you just help me? And that's when I went, yeah, you know what? I can. I'd love to do that. And that's sort of how the whole thing started. And because of my degree in marketing, but my love of computer science, mm-hmm. I managed to combine those two. And that's when sort of this whole digital marketing was exploding. And that was back in the day when doing search engine optimization was, I could get someone on page 1 in 3 hours. Mm-hmm. It was so much fun. Of course, today there's a whole new ball game, and Google has changed everything, and it takes a lot more, but we still know how to make that happen. So that's the my quick story there, and we've been going strong ever since.
Awesome. Well, what's interesting is, I don't know if you remember this, I also have a degree in computer science, but it's from 1985. And that's back then. We wrote code. We had a big block of granite and a hammer and a chisel. That's how we wrote code. Right. So it was interesting. I love the combination of a marketing degree and a computer science degree, because a lot of marketing today of course, is driven by the online engines. I mean, my gosh, I mean, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying use all those, but you certainly should have a presence on there. And you have the understanding of how that works behind the scenes. Like when you understand software and hardware, you know how those things work. It's intuitive. And you also have this marketing degree, so you understand how to reach people and connect with them, and drive people to action. So it's a vital combination, and it's no wonder you're as successful as you are. But so look, just real quick, I'm just curious, talk a little bit about when did you get your degrees? Were they jointly at the same time? Which one did you do first? Which one did you do second? And when did you realize, man, you got something magic there when you could combine those two disciplines,
Yeah. So, gosh, when did I graduated in 94. So it's been a little while. And I actually, when I was in school, I originally thought, I was going to do this whole operations management thing. And then I realized the statistics were just not fun. And I'm not that's not my thing. So I moved over to marketing and loved it. And what happened was I actually had a professor that I was taking a coding class with. And he noticed that I was there early and I was there late, and I was asking lots of questions, and I was, helping other students because I found it all fascinating. And so he's the one who kind of said, hey, I know you're marketing, but if you also add this computer science, I think you could take that somewhere. And then he actually let me do really cool stuff. He actually let me do a self-directed class. So I got all these credits to do my own thing. So what I did was I took the marketing and I combined it with the computer science, and I used it in a way that really hadn't been done yet. Of course, it's done all the time now, but I did video, and I used video to not only promote a product, and I actually went and found somebody who had a product and didn't know how to promote it. And so we went and put all this together. And that was kind of that click where I was like, this is really fun. Like combining those two makes a lot of sense. And through the years working with different, those big companies that sell to orthodontists and dentists, that's when I kept seeing that marriage over and over again. But no one was really taking a basic knowledge of marketing and then combining it with that skill of the computers. And what happens is, yes, we can do really cool stuff for getting you found online, but if you're not using some of those marketing tools, then who cares if they find you, because they're going to leave.
Right.
So one without the other doesn't really work as well as when you combine them. And then once you start combining them, that's when really cool, fun stuff happens.
Right. Well, if you wouldn't mind, I know you've been doing this for quite a while, 12 years. Can you think of a case study in mind, like when you first met the practitioner, and what, of course you do like a what we call a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and involves or includes their marketing, obviously. And then where they were then and where they are now, and maybe what some strategies you implemented. Because I know everybody listening here is thinking, I know for me personally, my business, we spend probably the most time, energy, and money on the, marketing, branding, advertising, research, all that stuff. It's a huge part of the business. And if you're a dentist, man, you're really almost stuck behind the chair and you really don't have time for all that. So it's like a big mysterious black box. But in any case, if you could maybe provide like a case study, that would really help shed a lot of light on this. If you don't mind, that'd be awesome. You can change names and all that kind of stuff. Protect the industry.
Absolutely. So the one that always comes to mind first, and this was we learned a lot as a company and the client, and it's actually changed a lot of what we do. So this is why I really like this one, because it wasn't a new doctor, but it was a new practice, and they really needed to ramp things up. So the doctor had experience, so we weren't worried about that. Are they going to be able to handle the steady flow of patients? So we put some basic things in place, and then we started running a campaign that I always hesitate to give this away because it seems like, oh, that can't work.
Yeah,
but it works, and it's the birthday campaign. And I stole it from restaurants. I saw it happening in restaurants, and I saw it being done poorly in restaurants. I'm like, I can do this well. I wonder if it'll work in the dental field. And so I asked around, and I just, random people, and say, hey, if you had a ad from a dentist that said free whitening for your birthday, would you think that was creepy? Would you like talk to me? And people were like, no, that'd be cool. Like every single person was like, no, that'd actually be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So we said, okay, we're going to put this whole plan together. This particular client came to mind. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. And they went for it. It's okay, let's do it. Now, because of the way that targeting works today, we can target people that are having a birthday right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, well, hopefully we'll find the right, like literally right now, 0 to 7 days. The best part about that type of targeting is no one gets tired of seeing the ad. And we'll still put 2, 3, sometimes even 4 different ads and rotate them. But you don't have what we call ad blindness because you're only seeing it for 7 days at the most, and you're not going to see the same one every time. So we get these great click-through rates. So the first thing that you have to do when you're doing any outreach is get people to click on your ad. So that's step one. Well, solved, right? We got that. That was working really, really well. Then we have to get you to fill out our form to take advantage of the offer. So the offer has to be good enough. And we call it an HSO, a holy smokes offer. And if you're on social media and the offer doesn't make you stop and go, holy smokes, then it won't work, right? It can't just be, hey, come on in for a free consultation. Everyone's offering that. So it's not enough. So we had to find that right offer and then explain that on what we call a landing page. So we take people to this page to explain what we're doing, why we're doing it. So I always have a reason why. And that's why birthdays are so easy. And there's your reason. Hey, we're doing this because it's your birthday and we want to make you feel good and happy on your birthday and have a nice bright smile. And then they fill that out, thank you page, and like a little countdown to kind of put a little pressure for them to call the office, because if we can get them to call, it's always better than if you have to chase them down. But we get all the information for you to do that. And this little campaign brought in 200 leads in about 10 months. It was a shot. Like, I couldn't believe how well it worked. So that was the process, and it was really cool to find all this. And then now it's sort of like we're going to always put that in place. We'll make sure that we get a couple people coming in every month. That's a guarantee. And then we're going to do the things that you're really excited about, like implants, and we'll get all that. But that was the one that was sort of that really works. We just make sure that that's always in place. Then when I said that we learned a lot, it was because what's happening is, and I'm sure there are dentists and other practitioners out there nodding their head going, yeah, we've given stuff away, and then they take it and we never see them again. So what happens is, and you've dealt with this, I'm sure, where everyone's like, oh, it's a bad lead. But it's not a bad lead. It is someone that raised their hand and said, hey, that sounds great. I want in. The question is, what do you do when they come in? And then how do you answer the phone? How do you make sure when they say, and I even tell people now, of course, I didn't know it then, but now they're going to call and say, what's the catch?
Yeah.
And your answer has to be, there is no catch. And then you can throw in well, there is one catch. You have to come in.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't say, and we record calls so that we can learn what's going on and what sort of training we need. But we had people that were like, oh, well, the catch is you have to, and then they'd list all this stuff. And it's like, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we caught that and like, all right, hey, we got to fix that. You need to train your front staff so that they know how to bring people in. And they're like, oh, no, they're great. Here's the call. And we'd have people listening to the call. And it's not like we don't want to point the finger and say, hey, we got you, you messed up. No, it's the training. Right. So then we put together training. Okay, here's all the training. Here's how you follow up with people. Here's, send a text message within 10 minutes and we can automate that for you. Send a phone call with, and then if they don't respond to the text, send a phone call within a certain amount of time. And again, we can now automate that. So through that whole process, we learned that if we can take and remove more and more from the office, then we get better and better results.
Right.
So it was a really interesting process. We also figured, okay, there used to be a big push, was probably maybe 6 or 7 years ago, for this free whitening for life. Dental offices were doing it like crazy. It did get a little saturated, but people aren't talking about it anymore. So it's working again. So we were training the offices to say, okay, now they've come in for their free whitening. Obviously, they have to have a quick exam because you can't just do whitening on somebody that's hasn't been to the dentist in 2 or 3 years.
Right.
So you got to get all that in place. But then they're feeling pretty good right now, right? Like they literally came and got free whitening. This is all great. Now is when you let them know, hey, if you'd like to do this again, all you have to do is sign up for your next cleaning. That's it. And it took us from like a 3% return to a 30.
Wow.
Yeah. That's huge. So now we're just talking about, okay, how do we get better on the phone? How do we get better at turning these people into lifelong patients? Because what happens is, as a dentist, as an orthodontist, a chiropractor, what have you, you're great at what you do and you want to focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you figure, well, I'm going to create this great experience and people are going to come back, but they're forgetting about you. It doesn't matter how great your experience is. Now that's sort of a baseline. It used to be, I create this great experience, people remember it, they talk about it, and I'm going to grow. Well, now that's a baseline given. If you don't create a great experience, they're going to go out online and see terrible things about you.
Right.
And now you've got a whole new problem. So that's sort of the baseline. That means that you have to wait to reach out and you have to get back in touch with them.
Right.
And then again, this whole process of learning, then we start looking at, now we look at marketing as more of a conversation.
Okay.
So it's not just a transaction anymore. We're counting conversations. And then we start looking at how do we automate that conversation? Because again, the more we can take out of the hands of the office, the better the results. But you can only automate so much. And so we use chatbots, and I love using Facebook chatbots because they they pull all of the detail from Facebook, and you know it's real, right? So no one's going to give you a fake email because it's pulled right from Facebook. They're not going to give you a fake phone number; it's pulled right from Facebook. So you get to have a conversation with somebody right there on your website, and they're on their phone. And then whenever you want to reach out and say, hey, maybe we have an opening, or hey, did you know that we still had this? Or, you could just keep, and it's right there on their phone. And I don't know if you've used Facebook Messenger, but it pops up. It's this, like, it practically takes, you can't miss it. So open rates, people actually reading your messages are through the roof. So those are that's why I kind of like that case study, because it kept ramping up, and we kept learning more and more, and we kept being able to deliver.
Okay. And that was early on. Was that early on in the building of the business then? That
was a few years back. Well, so if you could imagine, Gary, the things that have changed since we started 12 years ago. So I feel like we restart every 2 years because everything changes so fast in the digital world. The key is there are certain things that will never change.
Mm-hmm.
Your reputation. Right? So your reputation, whether it is online, offline, we've got to make sure we're building that. Because if we don't have that, it doesn't matter how great your offer is, no one's going to call you. You've got to have that built. Then we know that there are some basic fundamentals of marketing, like your offer.
Mm-hmm.
If your offer is no good, doesn't really matter what we do.
Yeah.
And then we have to make sure that you have what we call message to market match.
Mm-hmm.
That what you're offering or what you're saying, the words you're using, they match the person who you're sending it to.
Right. Yeah.
Just these basic principles, they're never going to change, which is why we're able to keep shifting as the technology changes, as Google changes, Facebook, you name it. But those are the fundamentals that we have to make sure we understand. We put certain foundations in place for our clients so that as things change, that's okay. Foundations in place. Then we can do all this other fun stuff.
Yeah. If you're anything like me, listening to good advice is helpful and inspiring at the same time. But having a reference guide at your fingertips is invaluable when I sit down to do serious planning. That's why if you go to the website, myinvestorservices.com, at the very top of the page, actually sort of near the middle, you'll see 5 different guides on 5 different aspects of real estate. All these are free, and all of them can help you impact your bottom line. Just check it out. Go to myinvestorservices.com. Right smack in the middle, click on any one you want, or all 5 if you want. Hey, for everybody listening, Brian hit on a really critical part in this whole business industry of marketing, which is we call it the marketing triangle. The market, there's 3 M's, 1 M at each corner of the triangle. 1 M is the market, the people you're serving. The other M is the message, what you're telling them. And the third one is your media, how you're communicating with them. So, Facebook is a medium of communication. Sending out a birthday card is a medium of communication. But when you have alignment between market, message, and media, you've got yourself a winning marketing campaign. In other words, think about it. Anybody listening to this, doesn't matter what business you're in. If you're providing a service, generally you're providing it to the mass market. Like if you have let's put it this. Let's say you've got engineers you market to. You serve engineers, you serve dentists, you serve chiropractors, you serve teachers, firemen, whatever. You wouldn't speak to an engineer in marketing terms the same way you would speak to a teacher. You use different language, different terminology. Like teachers are used to certain terminology. Engineers are used to certain terminology. So you would match your language patterns to match their terminology, communicate with them the medium that they're most likely to respond to, right? Open up an email, look at a Facebook post, or open up a birthday card, for example. And when you have that alignment, that's where the money comes out. So vital lesson. And I appreciate you sharing that whole experience, because it just shows people, anybody listening, it's like, man, I'm in the business of putting braces on people, or I'm in the business of creating beautiful white smiles. I'm not in the marketing business. That's why we have people like Brian who do this. And the way the industry's evolved over the years, particularly the thing for you, Brian, is it's ironic. You got your 2 degrees right at the beginning of the birth of the internet. Okay, so you were really prime positioned perfectly to participate in that growth and the evolution of that whole medium of communication.
Yeah.
But if we could, let's do this. Let's go back. So timing wise, here we are. We believe at or near the peak of an economic cycle. We could stay here for 5 more years. We don't know, or it could start to slow down this year or next year. We just don't know that. But you've also been through one tech bubble at a minimum, and also the big recession of 2007 through 11. So how has that impacted you and your business? How do you, like, when it comes to marketing, a lot of people, when budgets get tight, they pull back on their marketing. I'm like, don't do that. You're restricting your future flow of business. So can you comment on that, on timing and market volatility and things like that related to marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if you're doing the math, we started right when everything started to tank. It was like, oh my God, I just thought, what am I doing? But here's what happens is you have the people that they're just tightening the belt. They're pulling every last dollar and hoping that they can save their way to prosperity. I have never seen that work. What I have seen work is the people that go, okay, there's only one expense here that will bring me new revenue. And that's marketing and sales. That's what we have to do. So when we're in times like this where, hey, everything's going great, that's when you want to spend the most on your marketing. And people are like, oh, but I don't need to. It's for the times when they get lean so that it won't affect you. So what we were finding is that we had plenty of people who were like, yep, I've cut all my marketing. And I'm like, oh my God, like, are you crazy? Like, how are you going to get people? What is the plan? Now, there were people that had plans, and probably it sounds crazy, right? So if you're a dentist, an orthodontist, a chiropractor, you're thinking of all these ways to reach people, and you probably don't think I can knock on doors. But I tell you what, you can. Yeah. And I have seen it. I've seen chiropractors do very well. I haven't seen a dentist or orthodontist do it yet. But I've seen a chiropractor build his entire business, knocking doors in the neighborhood, introducing himself. Here's a coupon. Would love to see you. So there is that ability. So if you're like, yeah, I've got to cut all my expenses, but I'm going to do this, then I support that 1,000%. That's hard to do. It's scary. And some people, you knock on the door, you're terrible at the door. There are some people who are just terrible at the door. You shouldn't be doing that, right? You're not helping yourself.
Right.
So then what we were finding was that there were people that we would reach out to, and they're like, what do you have that's new? What can we do right now? And those are the ones that were fun to work with. And then we also had, and probably more in the orthodontic industry, where they never had to market before 2008. It was, things are going great, and plenty of business. And then all of a sudden they have the downturn in the economy, and their competition started to drastically increase. We had people that had maybe 5 or 6 competitors in a nice big town, and all of a sudden they're 40.
Right.
And they've never had to do any marketing. And the people that are coming in are hungry, and they've got these massive loans, huge debt, and they are marketing like crazy. And these guys are like, they're no good. They're brand new. And I've seen their cases, and they complain about all this stuff. I'm like, see, that doesn't matter. You need good marketing to tell your story. And if you don't know how to tell your story, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And I've been in, probably over 400 dental and orthodontic offices over the years. And the one thing that always stands out is the personality of the office. And the doctor usually drives that. So if the doctor has this big personality and they're super fun, that practice is going to stay busy no matter what. And if you're thinking, I'm not that guy, like I don't have that big personality, you hire somebody who is, because that works too. You've got an office manager or your front desk person who is just fantastic, and they greet everybody. And when you come in, you feel good. That person is worth about as much as the doctor.
Right.
And so we have those conversations where I'm like, I've called your office now about 10 times. That person probably shouldn't answer the phone anymore. Now, I've had those conversations and then was told that to my wife, and that didn't go over very well. So I've learned. However, the point is, the person who is answering the phone, the person who is interacting with your patients, with anyone that is coming in and out of your office, let's say you're not patients, but customers, clients, that person is your point of contact. And they are the most valuable person, especially on that first phone call. When somebody calls in, they have a question, a concern, they maybe want to get more information. How they're treated by that one person is worth your entire business. So if you keep thinking, well, if I can just shave that down to maybe $12 an hour or maybe 11, I don't know what the current rate is. Don't do that. When you're out and about and you find somebody that engages with you, that you feel good about, and when they call to confirm an appointment and you're like, man, I really like talking to this person, offer them a job. Whatever they're making, you'll pay more, because that is worth a fortune. And I've worked with offices where the treatment was excellent. The pricing was great. Their offers were fantastic, beautiful, clean. I mean, like you can't do more, but the person who was answering the phones was so toxic that the business failed.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, this is a $100,000 person right now, and not making me 100, losing you 100 easily. I said, because if I'm feeling it, I'm not even a patient.
Right.
And I've seen the interaction with patients. So those are all there's so many pieces of that puzzle. So when you talk about the upturns and the downturns, I always kind of go to the people problem. Right. Because when things are slow, you tend to want to restrict when what you need to do is expand. And so for anyone listening, when things are going great now is when you want to put all of your effort into good, solid marketing, so that when things slow down, you can turn that up.
I agree. We always tell people, we call it being in abundance. When you're in abundance and things are going great, that's when you turn up the gas. When you're in abundance, you go for more abundance. For a lot of the new practitioners out there, people just in business first 1 to 3 years, for example, they know they need help. They understand the concept. It's just like, man, it's just like another big thing for me to learn. And they reach out to you. What can they expect? Like, did they do like a quick analysis of their business now? Like, what are the steps involved with them working with you to get their marketing up and running? What's the process a new client will go through?
Yeah, no, that's great. Because I do want people to know that it's not like, oh, here are my packages, pick one. And if you ever run into that, maybe that's not the right fit. Yeah. Because there's things that we need to know about your practice, about your marketing. And again, I always use the word practice because that's what I'm used to, but we work with lots of different companies and restaurants, you name it. Your reputation is the first thing that we're going to look at. And we have tools that just go out and they search and they look for your reviews. They want to see, are you getting reviews? If you are, how often? So we're going to dive pretty deep into that reputation first. And then, because we want you to get found, and today your Google map listing, like we call it the 3-pack, but essentially when somebody is on their phone and they're searching, Google is serving up different results depending on where you are. So phone results are different than computer results, laptop results. So what they're doing is they're seeing ads and then they're seeing the map. Not everybody even goes past that map. So we need you there. And if we're going to get you there, then we need lots of reviews and we need good, solid reviews. So that map listing has become more valuable than a website. And it's, we build websites. So it's like, should I not say this? But I say it anyway, because the website is no longer the first and most expensive thing that you should do for that outreach. So if you're in that 1 to 3 year, just getting started in any business, do not spend money on a fancy website, because less and less people are going to websites. And I can show you all the data on it. It is fascinating. People are searching, they're seeing the map, and if you've got positive reviews and they're checking those out, then they tap to call. They're done. So that review is to become today's referral. So if you're always like, oh, I get, I grow by referrals, that's now your referral. And it is extremely important to really focus on that. So that's part of our foundation, right? We've got to have that reputation in place. Once we have that, then we're looking at sort of have you done the right things to set up your business online? Like we call it your presence. Listings in Yelp, in Facebook, in insider pages, super pages, YellowBot. There's hundreds of them. You don't need them all. But there's about 30 that matter, 3 that matter the most: Facebook, Google, and Yelp. Those are the 3 that matter the most. But we have to make sure that the information, we call it NAP, name, address, phone number. Is your name, address, and phone number exactly the same with those 3? Now, if there's slight variations, Google can figure it out. Google's pretty smart. But don't make them figure it out. Get it exact. And then fill out as much information as you can so that you're always telling Google, and I always use Google because they're the 800-pound gorilla. They're the ones that matter the most right now. But make sure Google knows what you're about. So that means that you fill out the description and you put keywords about what you do. And keywords are just a way to say to people, this is what I do. And so it's kind of like, how do you match what people are reading with what you want search engines to see? And it's sort of a fine mix. So you don't just write a whole bunch of keywords. You write a nice paragraph, but you make sure that, if you're a dentist, that you're talking about what you do. So teeth whitening or implants or bridges, make sure that's in there. Orthodontist, same thing, and put in brand names. Those help.
Right.
So we're going to look at all of that first. And then I'm trying to think, if you're in that first 1 to 3 years, if you've got time, video is absolutely key. Absolutely key. Now, there are ways that we can help. Like we can create video from your reputation. So we take reviews and then we create great videos. We can create videos from an article that you may have written or that you should be writing. So we know that there's lots of different ways to create video. However, if you are comfortable in front of a camera and you have a phone that's been made, in the last 3 years, it is high enough quality to create a really nice video. And if you can consistently, we call it the weekly show, but if you can consistently create video content, then we do what we call the omnipresence campaign.
Okay.
So that video is now on your website, it's on YouTube, and it's on Facebook. And then we'll put it maybe on Medium, and there's lots of other places that we can put it. That content is then turned into an article. So now we have an article for your blog, which is your website, for a link on Facebook to send back to your website, on all these other sites. So we create content and links back to your website. Well, then we can take that same thing and we can turn that into a different type of video where we chunk it up. All right. So we've created now another set. Those go out to all those different places. Any place where we can create an image, we will then create an image that will link back to your website, your videos, and those go out to all the different image sites. And then you recycle. And so that whole thing, let's say you covered 3 topics in that video. Well, that's 3 separate posts that can go out onto social media that can then bring people back. I mean, it's like we just want you everywhere all the time so that whenever somebody is thinking about something, if they just think it, we want them to find you. And I always mention this, is that people don't necessarily realize that YouTube is the number 2 search engine in the world. Yeah. And it's owned by Google.
Yeah.
Be there. I mean, be there. And it's not so much that we think people are going to go to YouTube and type in, dentist near me or chiropractor near me or, real estate investment near me.
They're looking for how-to.
Exactly.
How-to, yeah.
They're looking for how-to. We can. This still is amazing, and we call it it's still the wild west when it comes to running video ads. But we set video ads up, and we get 3 or 4 cent views on video ads. So we're just sifting right at 3 and 4 cents a view. Let's get your video in front of as many people as we can and find the ones that are interested because they're going to take an action or click. Well, then we do what's called retargeting. We know that they have raised their hand and say, "Hey, I'm interested in what you've got." And then we follow them all over the internet until they say stop. And what's amazing about YouTube is that they're still letting you skip, right? So you know how you want to watch a video and then you're like, oh, I want to wait for the skip.
Right.
That first 30 seconds, you don't pay for.
Cool.
So if you can get a solid message out in the first 30 seconds, that view is free. The other thing that works really well is that, if you're running a video ad, you can actually say, hey, if you're interested in real estate investing, you should watch this video. Don't click that skip button. Or you go the opposite way. Go, hey, if you're not at all interested in real estate investing, go ahead and click that skip button as soon as it comes up, because this is not for you. Yeah. Well, that means that you're never paying for these video views that you don't want to.
Right. So speaking of how can people get a hold of you? I know we're getting kind of short on time here. I want to make sure, if any book you've written or article you've written or a podcast you have or a website, because I know a lot of people listening, I'm even myself, and I'm in the business. I realize I probably could use more help too. So how can we get a hold of you?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Gary. I really appreciate that. So my website is toplinemanagement.com, and that's TOPLINE, and then management all spelled out. I'm always gonna mess it up. Mm-hmm. And we're in the process of redoing that website, but bear with it for now. But you can go there. You can look at the blog. I've probably got a couple of hundred videos on the blog, so you can get a feel for what we talk about, what we do. There's information about the reputation marketing, and we always talk about marketing your reputation, not just managing, because managing doesn't make you money. Marketing does. We want you to get those reviews and then market with them so that people see them. And so, you can always do that, or you can always just give me a call if you have questions, concerns, thoughts, or if you just like to run ideas. I don't know if you can tell, I'm a total geek about this stuff. So I love chatting about it. So my number is 720-989-1932. If I can pick up, I will. It rings all my numbers at once. But I really love talking about this stuff.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I think I speak for everybody, Brian, when I say thanks for sharing your valuable time. And I know you're a busy guy, and your expertise and knowledge. You gave a lot of good content today, and I hope everybody, I really appreciate it. But I look forward to having you on again. And for everybody listening, again, if you haven't subscribed, please go to any of your favorite podcast channels. Subscribe to Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women. You'll see that we really do cater to professionals and business owners. It's not just about buying your real estate. How do you make more out of your business so you can buy more real estate? And this is a perfect example of that today. So also go to the My Investment Services website, join the community. Man, there's thousands of us out there. Investors, remember, we've got those specialized investor agents who are certified to work with you and I. Critical piece of the pie. So in any case, Brian, thanks again for being on. For everybody here participating, God bless you and your families. And we will see you on the next podcast.
Thanks so much, Gary.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women. Be sure to go to myinvestmentservices.com to join our community and start building wealth today.